I want you to picture a scenario. It sounds like a riddle, but it's actually a biography. You have two fathers.
Okay.
Both of them are successful. Both work incredibly hard their entire lives. But one of them dies and leaves, tens of millions of dollars to charity, his church, his family.
And the other one?
The other one. He leaves behind a stack of unpaid bills.
It does sound like a parable. But that is the real-life setup for one of the most, polarizing and popular financial books ever written. We are diving into Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
And here's the part that always throws me off. You'd assume the guy leaving the millions was the genius academic, right? The one with all the degrees.
You would think. But in this case, the poor dad, the one struggling with debt, was the highly educated one. PhD, Stanford, University of Chicago, a government official, brilliant man.
And the rich dad.
He never finished the 8th grade.
That is wild. So essentially, we're looking at what an 8th grade dropout understood about money that a PhD just didn't.
Exactly. And before we get into the weeds, I want to manage expectations for you listening. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's actually more about unlearning than it is about learning. Kiyosaki's whole premise is that we are all programmed with a poor mindset from the moment we start school.
You mean that classic script? Go to school, get good grades, get a safe job with benefits.
Right. He argues that advice is actually a trap. It leads you directly into what he calls the rat race.
I've heard that term thrown around a million times, but what does he actually mean by it, technically?
Think of it like a cycle of fear and consumption. You work to pay bills. Then maybe you get a promotion. Great, right?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
But what do? You buy a nicer car, maybe a bigger house, so now your bills are higher.
Oh,
So you have to work even harder, or stay in that job you might hate just to cover the new costs. You're running faster and faster on the wheel, but you aren't actually going anywhere.
that hits a little too close to home. Okay, let's unpack this. We have these two dads. The biological father is the poor dad, and the rich dad is his friend Mike's dad. How do their mindsets really differ? Is it just about investing?
It starts way before that. It actually starts with language. The poor dad, the academic, he would say things like, I can't afford it.
Which seems like a pretty responsible thing to say if you're broke.
It seems responsible, but Kiyosaki says it's mentally lazy. It's a statement. It closes your mind. You say, I can't afford it, and your brain stops working.
So what did the rich dad say?
He forbade that phrase. He forced the kids to ask, how can I afford it?
I see. So one's a stop sign, and the other is a question that forces you to problem solve.
Precisely. One dad lets his financial brain just sleep. The other one exercises it constantly. The poor dad thought the love of money was the root of all evil.
And the rich dad.
The rich dad thought the lack of money was the root of all evil.
There's a story early in the book that I think just perfectly illustrates this gap. It's the toothpaste story. And I have to say, this made me laugh out loud because it's so dangerous.
Oh, the business venture.
Yeah. So Robert is 9. He wants to be rich. He asks his poor dad how to make money. And his dad basically just brushes him off, says, use your head. So Robert and his friend Mike start collecting all the used toothpaste tubes from their neighbors.
And we should clarify for anyone younger listening. Back in the 1950s, toothpaste tubes weren't plastic. They were made of lead.
Right. So these two kids, they build a fire in the backyard. They're melting down these lead tubes, and they pour the molten lead into these little plaster molds.
And then Robert's dad walks in.
And Robert proudly says, we're doing what you said. We're making money.
They're casting their own.
Literally manufacturing currency.
They were counterfeiters.
9-year-old felons, yes. But look at the reaction. The poor dad, the rule follower, he was horrified. He lectured them on how illegal it was.
But when they told Mike's dad, the rich dad, he just laughed. He told them, you boys have the right idea. You're showing creativity. You're thinking like capitalists. You just need to stop breaking the law.
That's a huge moment. It leads to Robert asking the rich dad to teach him. And the teaching method is, well, it's not exactly a classroom seminar.
No. Rich dad puts them to work. He hires them at one of his convenience stores for 10 cents an hour.
Which, even in the 50s, was absolute garbage pay, wasn't it?
Oh, it was terrible. Basically slave labor. And Robert, being a normal kid, gets fed up after a few weeks. He feels totally exploited. He marches over to Rich Dad's house to quit and demand a raise. He is ready to just scream at this guy.
Which is exactly what an employee is supposed to do, isn't it? You're supposed to fight for your worth.
In the rat race, yes. But Rich Dad reveals the whole thing was a setup. He wanted Robert to be angry. He told him, if you hadn't gotten angry, I couldn't teach you.
So he wanted him to feel the trap.
He wanted Robert to feel that specific trap, trading your time for a pittance and thinking that a slightly bigger paycheck is the solution to the problem.
This is where he gets into the two emotions that run our lives, fear and desire.
Yes. This is deep psychology. He says most people are run by the fear of not having money. That fear is what pushes you out the door to go to a job you might not even like.
Huh?
Then you get paid, the fear subsides for a moment, and desire kicks in. You see all the shiny things that money can buy.
The donkey and the carrot.
Exactly. The donkey runs after the carrot. That's the money. But the donkey never actually gets the carrot, and the owner of the cart goes wherever he wants to go. Rich Dad's point was, don't be the donkey.
So don't work for money.
If you work for money, you are ruled by fear and desire. If you make money work for you, you master those emotions.
Okay, make money work for you. It's a great bumper sticker, but what does it actually mean? This brings us to what I think is the most controversial part of the book, the whole definition of assets versus liabilities.
It sounds boring, I know, accounting. But stick with us, because Kiyosaki redefines these words in a way that makes traditional accountants just scream.
It simplifies it.
He strips it all the way down to cash flow, he says. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket.
Okay, that's simple enough. Stocks, bonds, royalties from a book, those put money in. Those are assets.
Correct. But here's where he starts a fight. He says your house, your personal home, is not an asset, it is a liability.
Whoa, hold on. Stop right there. That goes against literally everything I've ever been told. The American dream is owning a home. It's usually people's biggest investment. How can he possibly call it a liability?
I know, it's a tough pill to swallow, but just look at his definition. Does your house put money in your pocket every month?
Well, no. I pay the mortgage.
Exactly. You pay the mortgage, you pay insurance, you pay property taxes. If the water heater breaks, you pay for that. Money is flowing out.
Right.
Even if you pay off the mortgage, you still have taxes and maintenance. It is a constant drain on your cash.
But it goes up in value. It appreciates.
It might appreciate, but until you actually sell it, that value isn't cash in your pocket. And in the meantime, it's keeping you poor by taking money out of your pocket every single month.
So he's saying don't buy a house.
No, he's just saying don't call it an asset, call it what it is,
Yeah.
a liability. And understanding this explains why the middle class struggles so much. He draws these diagrams of cash flow patterns.
Okay.
For the poor, income comes from a job and it goes straight to expenses.
Rent, food, clothes, gone.
Right. The middle class has income, but they use it to buy liabilities thinking they're buying assets. They buy the big house, the nice car, the boat.
So the money comes in, hits the liability column with the mortgage and the car note, and then leaves as an expense.
Exactly. They look rich, but they are bleeding cash. The rich. They use their income to buy assets, real estate that pays rent, stocks that pay dividends, businesses. The money hits the asset column, generates more money, and they use that money to buy luxuries.
I see. So the rich buy the Porsche with the dividends from their stock portfolio. The middle class buys the Porsche with their salary and goes into debt.
Perfect summary. The rich buy luxuries last. The poor and middle class buy them first.
That distinction, income-generating assets versus income-covering liabilities, that really highlights why someone with a high income can still be completely broke.
Oh, yeah. You can make 200 grand a year, but if your liabilities strip it all away, you're still in the rat race. You're just running on a more expensive wheel.
So how do we get off the wheel? This leads to the idea of minding your own business. And there's a great little anecdote about Ray Kroc, the guy who built McDonald's.
I love this one. So Ray Kroc is talking to a room full of MBA students at a university, and he asks them, "What business am I in?"
They all kind of chuckle and say burgers, obviously.
And Kroc says, "No, my profession is selling burgers. My business is real estate."
That sounds like a technicality.
It's not, though. Think about it. McDonald's is basically a real estate company that happens to sell franchises. They own the land at some of the busiest intersections in the entire world. The franchise pays for the business, but the corporation owns the real estate.
So what's the lesson for the average person? I mean, most of us aren't Ray Kroc.
The lesson is the difference between your profession and your business. Your profession is what you do from 9 to 5 to pay the bills. It's what you are, a banker, a nurse, a welder. Your business is your asset column.
So mind your own business doesn't mean stop being nosy. It means literally pay pay attention to your assets.
Exactly. Most people spend their lives minding everyone else's business. They work for their boss, that's the boss's business. They pay taxes to the government's business. They pay the mortgage to the bank's business.
Right.
Kiyosaki says, don't quit your day job. Keep your profession, but start minding your own business by putting every spare dollar into that asset column.
But here's the problem, and I think this is where people get discouraged. You work hard, you try to save to buy these assets, but every time you get a paycheck, the government takes this huge chunk of it, taxes.
Ah, taxes. The biggest expense in your life. And this brings us to the most technical, but arguably the most powerful part of the book, the corporation.
Now, when I hear corporation, I'm thinking Google or General Motors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think of, Steve from down the street.
And that's the mistake. A corporation isn't a building. It's just a file folder in a lawyer's office. It's a legal entity. But the rich use it to play by a completely different set of rules.
How so? Is this just about hiding money?
It's not about hiding it. It's about the sequence of events. Listen to this carefully. If you are an employee, the sequence is earn, tax, spend.
Meaning I earn my salary, the government takes the tax out before I even see it, and then I try to live on whatever's left.
Correct. But a corporation follows a different sequence. Earn, spend, then tax.
Wait, run that by me again. A corporation earns money. Then it spends money on all its expenses. Computers, travel, car payments, sometimes even meals, as long as they're legitimate business expenses. Then and only then does it pay tax on what is left over.
That seems almost unfair. So if I need a new laptop as an employee, I have to buy it with after-tax dollars. I have to earn, like $1,500 to buy a $1,000 laptop. But a corporation buys it with pre-tax dollars.
Exactly. The corporation gets a discount on life. Rich Dad viewed the tax code not as a punishment, but as a system of incentives. The government offers tax breaks to people who provide jobs and housing, so businesses and real estate investors.
And if you play by those rules, you get the benefits.
Right. If you just work for a salary, you pay the highest rates.
It's the difference between knowing the rules of the game and just being a pawn on the board.
Knowledge is the new money. That's really the thesis here. If you're ignorant, you get bullied. If you know the law, you have power. Speaking of knowledge, let's talk skills. Segment 5 is work to learn, don't work for money. There's this idea that specialization is the key to success. Get a PhD, become the world's expert in this one tiny thing.
That was the poor dad's philosophy. Job security through specialization. The rich dad thought that was actually really dangerous. He believed in synergy, knowing a little bit about a lot of things.
There's a story about a journalist from Singapore. She was this talented writer, really gifted, and she asked Robert for advice on how to become a best-selling author.
And Robert told her, go take a sales training course.
And she was insulted, right? She was an artist. She thought sales was slimy.
She packed up her notes and left, but Robert's point was staring her right in the face. She had a book with her, and he pointed to the cover and said, it says best-selling author. It doesn't say best writing author.
Oh, that is such a burn, but it's so true.
It's the reality. The world is full of brilliant, poor, talented people. They are often just one skill away from greatness. This journalist was a master of writing the product, but she refused to learn sales, the distribution.
Robert lived this himself.
Right.
He joined the Marines, not because he wanted to be a soldier, but because he wanted to learn leadership.
He wanted to learn how to lead men in dangerous situations so he wouldn't be afraid of business leadership. Then he joined Xerox, not because he cared about photocopiers, but because he was terrified of rejection.
Oh, wow.
He forced himself to do door-to-door sales until he got over that fear.
That seems absolutely miserable.
It was, but he was working to learn, not for the paycheck. He was building his toolkit. The rich dad philosophy is that you need to understand the systems: cash flow, systems, and people. If you can manage those three, you can run any business.
But if you just specialize in cooking burgers, you'll always work for the guy who understands the systems.
That's it.
All right, we're coming to the end here, but we have to address this concept of inventing money. This is where the skeptics usually roll their eyes. It sounds like magic.
It does. Robert tells a story about buying a house in Phoenix during a market crash. He finds a house that's worth $75,000. The owner is desperate and is selling it for $20,000.
Okay, that's a lucky find, but you still need $20,000. Most people don't have $20,000 just lying around.
Robert didn't either, and this is the invention part. He didn't use his own money. He borrowed the $20,000 from a friend at a high interest rate for 90 days. He gave the money to an attorney, secured the house, and then immediately advertised it for $60,000.
Which is still a huge deal if it's worth 75.
Exactly. It sold immediately. He paid back his friend the $20,000 plus a $2,000 thank you fee, and he pocketed roughly $40,000.
Okay, wait. Let's slow that down. That sounds easy, but technically what happened there, he never actually owned the house himself.
He used a contract. He put the house under contract. He controlled the property without technically owning it yet, and then he sold his interest in it. It's called arbitrage or wholesaling in real estate circles.
Right.
But the point isn't the real estate tactic. The point is that money wasn't the resource he needed.
The resource was the knowledge.
Yes. He spotted an inefficiency in the market, a house priced way too low. He used a contract to capture that value. He created $40,000 out of an idea and a legal document.
That brings it all the way back to the beginning. The poor dad says, I can't afford it, because he looks in his bank account and sees zero. The rich dad says, how can I afford it? And looks at the market to see the opportunity.
That's the takeaway. Money is not real. It's an agreed-upon illusion. The poor work for the illusion. They trade their hours for it. The rich create the illusion. They invent money through ideas, contracts, and systems.
It's a little matrixy, isn't it? There is no spoon.
It is. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. The single most powerful asset you have is your mind. If you train it on financial literacy, understanding markets, understanding the law, you can create wealth. If you don't train it, you will simply work hard your entire life.
So here's the challenge for everyone listening, and I'm asking myself this too. Look at your bank statement from last month. Where did your money go? Did it go to your business, your asset column, or did it go to your profession and your liabilities?
It's an uncomfortable question, but if you want to get out of the rat race, it's really the only question that matters.
A huge thank you for walking us through this. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a classic for a reason, even if it does make you want to yell at your mortgage statement.
It's better to yell at it than to be crushed by it.
We'll leave it there. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.